I don't think I could have a better guest on right now talking about something like this who evaluates players all the time for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I want to get his sense before I bring him up. I want to read this to him about Carson Wentz because we started our show off with this now that he's signing with the Rams here. By the way, Jason's early childhood favorite team, the LA Rams. Carson Wentz, Burt Bell MVP. My uncle won that. Jaworski won it. Jalen Hurts won it last year. Pro Bowler. Fourth all-time in passing yards in Eagle history since 1930. Fourth in completion percentage. Fourth in TD passes. He's got the first, the fifth, the ninth, and the 27th best single-season yardage numbers in Eagle history. He's got the most touchdown passes in the history of the franchise at 33, fifth at 27, ninth at 25, and 16th twice in 16 and 20. Now he signs with the Rams. I said I think he belongs in the – and he's got a Super Bowl ring. And he was 11-2. And you don't win home field advantage without his play in 17. I said he belongs in the Eagle Hall of Fame. Name me a quarterback that had that type of success that helped lead your team to the promised land. Now he's got a chance in an audition with the Rams. He's not going to be a Rams quarterback because of the money that's involved with Stafford. Carson Wentz, very complex. Let's bring Jason Cole in, our friend, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on Carson Wentz and what you think of him and his opportunity now with the Rams. And, you know, it's funny, Jace. He threw for 3,800 yards, 3,900 yards in Indianapolis a couple of years ago with 27 touchdowns and 6 picks. And they were 9-8, and they said he sucked. And he was 68% completion percentage, and he didn't. Question marks on the owner.
Not stat wise, he didn't suck. But
how many people do you think are going to succeed in Indy? Well, that guy's still looking for the replacement for Andrew Luck.
Well, there's some. I mean, how long have the Dolphins been looking for a replacement for Dan Marino?
Okay. Yeah, but they had the numbers in the
and building. How long did the Cincinnati Bengals go before they found a real quarterback between what was it, Greg Cook and Carson Palmer? I'm not sure that that's really fair comparison. But Carson Wentz was just not. He's not a team guy. He's not a tough guy. There's a lot of things in the locker room that guys don't like about him. Okay, and those are not quantifiable. But you've been in locker rooms where the quarterback is not an unappreciated light guy.
I think he talks to half the locker room, Jace. I think he talks to half the locker room where when you're a real leader like Brady and Hurts and these guys, you talk to the doorman. You know what I mean?
Right. You look, everybody just tells the whole vibe about Carson Wentz, including I've heard people who don't like his wife. I mean, that's how bad it is, right? And I always feel like stuff like that should be, left off the matter, but guys even bring it up. Like you don't have to go searching for it. So, there's just a lot of stuff about Carson where he doesn't seem to care about a lot beyond Carson. And that rubs guys the wrong way. How he handled the whole thing after, Foles led him to a Super Bowl, and he came back and was uncomfortable with Foles in the locker room and stuff like that. That's happened. So this goes beyond playing, and what I'm trying to say is he's not a good enough player to overcome having a crappy personality. Some quarterbacks are so good that whatever.
Rodgers.
Well, that's been said about him many times. Yes, there's other guys out there who are schmucks. But people are like, dude's good. Make it work. But yeah, in the perfect world, what you want is a guy like a Brady or a Peyton Manning, who takes care of everybody in the locker room in some way, recognize anybody. It's like Tom Brady when he was at the ring ceremony in Tampa, and he stands there and he points out every single guy on the team in that little speech. And you think it's kind of like hokey and this and that, but that matters to guys. It matters to guys who, like they work really hard for the smallest bit of appreciation. The money is great, but the appreciation from a guy like Brady means so much to those guys, the practice squad guys, the backup defensive linemen, the backup offensive linemen, the special teams guys. Like that's the job of being a quarterback, of being a great quarterback, is to bring all those guys together.
Jace, I hope you're not one of these guys, but why do I feel now that we're past Wednesday and into Thursday, for some reason, everybody and every time I tune it on, I could have swore the Cowboys beat the Eagles. And it's like they won that game Sunday, and I'm hearing Dak outplayed Jalen. I'm like, no, Jalen made more critical plays in that game than Dak did. Not that Dak played poorly. He did.
I thought Dak played great. I mean,
he did. But I went like this. I'm like, why is that narrative always out there that, see, to me, the Cowboys haven't proven they can beat a contender, Jason, but yet they talk like contenders.
Well, that's the Cowboy way.
I guess.
Right? I mean, it all relates back to my premise that they print Super Bowl tickets before they qualify for the playoffs. Okay, that is the Cowboy way. Is like, we're in Vegas, baby. Like, no. Like, don't make the reservations yet. Okay, hold off. Okay, don't print the tickets for the Super Bowl just yet. Okay, qualify for the playoffs first. And they've always, and that's the mentality of Jerry, and it seeps down to the entire team. It's like, I remember, this is a basketball analogy, but remember when the Dallas Mavericks made it to the NBA Finals the first time, and Mark Cuban was losing his mind on the sideline, and finally Avery Johnson went to him and said, "Hey, look, if you're freaking out, that justifies the players freaking out. And if the players freak out, I got to get them back under control, and I got to get them focused. So you got to do me a favor, Mark. You got to keep it buttoned up and hushed up and not complain about the officiating, not complain about anything. Keep it together so that the guys don't feel like they can act the same way." Well, Jerry acts this way as if, oh, we're right there. We're on our way to the Super Bowl. No. Grind it out. Grind out the season. Focus on what the season takes, because that's what will get you through it eventually. And it's really, really hard, but that's what you've got to do it. But yeah, look, I thought Dallas gave him a lot better game than I expected. I expected the Eagles to beat them up. All right. And the Eagles, in some ways, should have, and then did some kind of zany things in the second half of that game. They took control of the game, but they did some stuff where they just didn't finish them off.
The 3rd and 3 they throw down the sideline to give the ball back was really weird. You're like this, wait a minute, you got the game won. Why did you have the 3 and out? All you had to do was make him even force him to take a timeout. You gave him an opportunity to win the ball game at the end of the game.
Right. Like that's not the Eagles' way of doing business. Like they get you into the third. Right. They normally get you into 3rd and 3 and say, okay, we're gonna pound you.
Right? Yeah.
And we're gonna pound you. We're going to tell you we're going to pound you, and we're still going to pound you. Like, that's how this is supposed to work. And for some reason, and sorry about it, there's a truck outside, but for some reason, they got away from what they are best at in that game. And I thought they got cute with the Cowboys where they should have just been hammering.
Is it panicking, Jason, with the new coordinators that when you're young?
Sometimes I think you guys I didn't see panic. I think they got outsmarted themselves. Sometimes
so lack of experience.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes even experienced guys do it. Like they just outthink themselves, right? Like even really smart coaches go, okay, they're going to expect this, and we're going to come up with the deep shot. Like, no, dude, it's 3rd and 3. Run it, or run something simple. Run like run a little two-way pattern where you find the one guy who's got a one-on-one matchup. He's got two directions he can go depending on how he reads the corner, outside, inside. Boom, you take the short one, right, for 5 or 6 yards, right? Devontae Smith can do that all day long, but you went for the deep shot, and like that's just not the play here. I would have even said you're better off if you just run the tush push on back-to-back plays.
Work the clock, make a timeout, be used.
Right now, I don't want to necessarily take a fourth down shot in my own territory, as good as I am with that. But I like that better than throwing it up on a weak side fade pattern. I mean, I just don't like that.
Stop the clock, no timeout to get the ball back, and you have a shot to win. I mean, that to me,
it was not the Eagle way of doing business. You gave Dallas a chance when there should have been no chance. And if Dak had just kept his foot in, and I don't blame him for doing that, but if he kept his foot in, it's a field goal game, and all of a sudden it's very different.
who's better, Ravens or Eagles?
Ravens are more consistent than the Eagles. The Eagles are a better overall football team.
Are those the two best teams at the midseason mark?
Yeah, they're incredibly physical. I mean, I do rankings where you take an average per play, and it's on the 33rd team this week. And Baltimore's number 2 in the league in terms of how little they allow on defense compared to how much they gain on offense. It's a really, really big differential. And when you have that kind of differential, you're a Super Bowl contender. Now, Philly doesn't have a very big differential this year, but again, when you watch them play, you go, okay, when they really need to, they take control of games. Right now, they're just kind of dicking around, playing, as we like to say, they're playing with their foot. They're not pounding people out.
Yeah, I look, I think they still got issues in that secondary. I don't think they're very physical in their backs. I mean, last year they had a guy in Miles Sanders who had 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns.
Well, I think DeAndre's pretty tough.
Here though, Jace,
he runs hard.
He's not going to get 1,300 yards this year.
No, he's not. I mean, he's not the same.
He didn't replace production.
Yeah, right. I just think that DeAndre Swift is a work, like, that's not where I said they have their problem.
I like him. I do.
Yeah,
I do too. One more thing about the Ravens, though. Can you imagine Roquan Smith still in Chicago right now? And look at what he's done with that Ravens defense and what Eric DeCosta did by putting that financial faith in him. It solidified they have no weakness on defense right now. They are so good on that side of the ball right now. And you put a 25-year-old kid. I mean, I thought the idea in Chicago was to acquire talent. You let that guy walk out the building, and you spent $100 million in 2 linebackers, where you could have had that guy signed to a new contract, but you went somewhere else, and you passed on Jalen Carter. I mean, boy, I tell you, man, Baltimore back again, making good decisions. I know it goes from Ozzie now to DeCosta, but he has made a massive impact in Baltimore.
Look, their defense is as sound as it gets from front to back. All right. Queen's playing great. Talk about Roquan playing great. They don't have any real weaknesses there. Now they've played something of a light schedule, which has helped, improve it. But they've also in the past 4 weeks played Detroit, or past 3 weeks, played Detroit and Seattle, which are not necessarily Super Bowl contenders, but those are good mid-level to maybe upper-level teams. Detroit,
I think they got the hardest schedule down the road here coming up here.
But the bottom line is they handled those 2 teams at home. They hammered them. And I think the other thing that we're sort of missing in all this is if their defense is that good, you don't have to ask as much of Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson can be very efficient. I mean, he's 71% because he's taken,
leading the league.
He's take the easy throw. You don't have to go take the high wire act throw. So he's off to, his personal best 71% there. Only 2 interceptions. Yeah, there's only 9 touchdown passes. People could quibble about that. But the way that they run their offense, 9 is fine. Okay, that's great. They've only, one of their 2 losses was a completely just happens chance game against Pittsburgh where they dropped 4 TD passes in that game. And the Steelers get lucky in a couple of places on, with their defense, right? By all rights, they should only have 1 loss, So what they're doing, what that defense allows them to do by not forcing Lamar Jackson to have to make those critical tough passes. I always say this: if you don't ask him to make 5 or 6 of those plays, if you only ask him to make 2 or 3 of those high leverage plays like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 7, 4th down, whatever it happens to be, you increase your odds of winning exponentially because he'll do everything else great. He's terrific at everything else.
Is it Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson at the mid grades here, mid part of the season, where you would say 1-2, 2-1 when it comes to most valuable player in the race? And would you put Mahomes in there? Would you put Burrow in there? Or is it right now?
Burrow didn't play well for the first 3 or 4 games.
Yep.
So he doesn't deserve it. Mahomes is just, their efficiency.
Now Hurts is 4th in turnovers.
Yeah, and so Hurts I have a hard time with because I think it's not that he's regressed, but he's just not what he was last year. And their red zone efficiency has dropped by 15 or 17%, something like that. They're not scoring touchdowns.
It's kind of ticking up a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but it started out horrifically. Their red zone issues were terrible. So, Jace, they're not turning the ball over as much over the last couple of weeks. And to me, I think it's more about wanting to be a finesse team versus, like I said, a physical team. With the Gainwell and Swift are not physical. They're good. They're more of a pass. They're trying to evolve into a passing team. And I don't know. It just, to me, you're not going to replace $2,000 in running and 25 touchdowns. Because last year, get this, Miles Sanders had 25 touchdowns with Hurts and 2,000 yards in rushing. You're not replacing that. And you're gonna throw more passing yards up, and which means that's more of a finesse team to me than what you did a year ago in 22. The 22 team to me was more of a physical football team.
Yeah, and again, Hurts fed off of that.
Yes,
to put up some great numbers, and that happens. So I would have Lamar Jackson ahead of Hurts on that side. Christian McCaffrey deserves some play in this thing. I'll be honest, TJ Watt. Like Pittsburgh has no business. They have no.
I have no idea how they're 5-3.
Right, they have a negative yards per play by like a yard per play. Their offense is horrible. Okay, I mean it's hard to watch. Like as much as I know George Pickens is a jackwagon and an idiot, okay, and a selfish prick, okay. As much as I know that from people who've told me what kind of kid
pebble in my shoe.
What? You what?
That's what Mike Tomlin goes. What do you make of that comment? And he goes, George Pickens' concerns are a pebble in my shoe.
Right, and I admire Tomlin for having that kind of bravado to say this is not that big a deal. At the same time, like Pickens is a child and he's handling this all wrong, but he's also not necessarily wrong about how bad things are.
It's like Canada.
Their offense is just not creative. Like they just never run. They never run movement with their receivers where guys are cutting under each other to create traffic for the DBs, right? And create easy throws for Pickett, okay? And whatever Pickett and Pickens, whatever their problem is, I don't quite get it. Pickens, got to keep his feet in bounds for a touchdown, and so that's why he's wrong there. But this is not a creative offense, and they've got better players than a year ago. Like they're further along, and this should look a whole lot better than it does.
Giants make a mistake on Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I made a mistake on Daniel Jones. You just don't pay for mediocrity. But it's so hard to go into that process of trying to find a guy. And I think that ultimately the price was not so staggeringly high that they got from underneath it. But and it's also hard to
40
dodge a guy
million?
when he's
40 million a year?
40 million is not.
180?
I
I
mean,
don't know, man.
there's guys making 40. There's guys making 50 million now, right? With
I get
a
it.
truckload guaranteed. Okay, that's the price of poker. So, but they can get out of the contract faster than other teams because of the full guarantee. So, if you know the numbers, it's not really 40 million. They're going to pay him more than he's worth, and I never thought he was really worth that. But I also know that it's like try going into the draft looking for a quarterback. And I feel bad, I feel bad for Dayball because I think Dayball is a pretty good coach. I will also say this about Dayball, like, you're not helping yourself a lot with the antics on the sideline. I know that there are lots of people out there. Oh, you got to rip somebody, and a new one. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to get them to play hard. Like, no, players respond to being taught, not being embarrassed.
Yeah, no
Right.
way.
So you have to pick
Don't
and
talk down
choose.
to me, man, in public. You want to talk down to me and address me? Do it in your office, not on the sidelines or in a press conference.
Right. You can. If I play bad, I play bad.
Yeah,
But pick your spot,
yeah.
and you lose a lot more guys. Now, occasionally there's a call for you have to do that, right? Occasionally, if a guy gets way out of line, but Evan Neal just playing bad, like he's not good. Why?
He's not.
It ain't his fault that he's not a good player. You're the one putting him out on the field, right? So
He's just not good enough, Jason.
right, and so like, why are you sitting there going WTF on national television? That's not doing you any good with your players.
Two last questions for you. 49ers, they get their pieces back, and they do a good job down the stretch here. Are you still a believer in Brock Purdy?
Yeah, as long as you don't ask them to come back from big deficits. Like he fits for what they're trying to accomplish. As long as you have a bunch of as long as you're relatively healthy around him. Okay, he's going to distribute the ball. He's going to get it in the right hands. He's going to do all the right things that Kyle Shanahan wants to do. The problem is that if you get behind and you have to throw and they're dropping 7 or 8 all the time against you, he doesn't have a big enough arm to overcome that, right? Like that's where the holes in the defense start to really tighten up, and people don't give you that kind of room. And that, that's why he was a 7th round pick. He doesn't have CJ Stroud's arm. He doesn't have, Ben Roethlisberger arm. He doesn't have that kind of talent to overcome that. So yes, everybody has to be healthy. But if everybody's healthy, you've got, Debo and McCaffrey and Ayuk, who's played terrific this year, and Kittle, who's still a threat. You have to account for him. Like they're as good as anybody. They can be the best team in the league. They can be better than the Eagles if everything is right. But right now, not everything is right. And so the Eagles are the best team in the league to me, with Baltimore and KC, right behind. And Miami's still good, really good.
Yeah, I agreed. Here, do you think the next destination for Jim Harbaugh, do you think that he'll be one of the hottest sought-after coaches because of this? And again, I look at that shit going on at Michigan. I don't care. If I'm an NFL owner, this guy's 47 or 49 and 19 and
If
1.
I'm in Michigan, I don't really care.
Right, right. And get this. Okay. Every guy's crying because he's out recruiting him and he's killing the teams now. And so they're mad at him because here's something about Harbaugh. If you know him like I do, this guy's got a welcome mat that he's a fist with a mouth on it. And he's always going to get into people's asses so quick because he's a sharp dude, and he's like John Tortorella of NFL coaches.
Let
He
me
is a
share
tough
let me share you a
drink.
great let me share a great story about him that just somebody at Stanford just told me. So when he was coaching at Stanford, I guess he got involved with a land deal with some of his buddies back in Michigan. And the way the contract on the land deal was written, he was responsible for all the money, and the deal went belly up. So we're talking he was in debt, 8, 10, $12 million. It was a ton of cash he was on the hook for. Some of the Stanford real estate guys came in and they negotiated it out for him and got together, and they got him out of the deal for literally pennies, for almost nothing. So they go out to dinner, right? It's all the guys who basically save him and Harbaugh, and they're having a dinner where he's like, "Okay, great, just relax." And then one of the downers comes in and says, "Hey, Jim, we just did this for you, but we're not expecting you. We expect a little bit of loyalty in return after we took care of you on this deal and negotiated out for you. We don't want to hear about, this other team comes calling." And Harbaugh was completely honest with him and said, "I'm the son of a coach." And they're like, "Well, what
Are
is
you
that?"
going to say a son of a bitch?
Well, it's getting close to this. He goes, "I'm a son of a coach." And they go, "Well, what does that mean?" He goes, "Well, I never really lived any place for that long. My dad was a good coach, not a great coach."
Like Jimmy.
Yeah. And he was like, we moved every 2, 3, 4 years and bounced around and went here. He goes, "And to be honest with you, that works for me because I wear people out."
He does.
And I was like, that's awesome, because it is an amazing amount of self-awareness by Jim Harbaugh about, like, he's a jackass in a lot of ways.
Oh,
And
he
he
you know
gets
what?
on
You
people's
don't know
nerves to
him.
no end. He's a
He
great coach, right?
Great
Like,
coach.
another story from Stanford. He had them practice in full pads on Christmas Eve, right? Full padded practice on Christmas Eve, getting ready for a bowl game. They got into a fight. The players got into a fight on Christmas Eve, and Harbaugh's like standing there going, "All right, it's Christmas Eve." But
He
this is, that's his mentality. He's different.
he is totally. But again, here's one thing though. There was conversation potentially David Tepper and him were going to meet last year. I think there was some talk with Minnesota. And if you think about it, the Trent Baalke thing didn't work out well. There was animosity there between the Yorks and all three of those guys. Baalke's down with the Jags now.
Well, that was
And
really about, like, the Balky thing was
would it
the
worry
side.
you, Jace, that he has like these adversarial relationships at a lot of places that he's at?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's concerning. If I'm hiring the guy, I'm hiring him thinking I'm maybe getting 4 to 5 years out of him.
Is that good enough for me?
That might be good enough for me. Like San Francisco, he got real close to winning a title, and at Stanford, like, that he is the father of the greatest era of Stanford football. Like,
Oh,
I
without a
can tell
doubt.
that, right, because that carried over not just him, but then it carried over to David
Coach Shaw.
Shaw. And we'd never gone to more than 2 bowl games in a row. Like, all of a sudden, we went to bowl games 7 or 8 straight years. I mean, that was
Did you get to a
fantastic.
Rose Bowl?
What?
Didn't you get to a Rose Bowl between Shaw
I'm
and
just saying, we
Harbaugh?
did. We got to Rose Bowls. We did. We never went for more. We would go.
Yeah, no, right.
Our history is we would go to back-to-back bowl games, right? We did Rose Bowls and back-to-back, but never get to a third one,
Yeah.
right? And he broke us out of that pattern, because what always happens at Stanford is they want you to be good. They just don't want you to be too good.
No. Here's what happens, Jace, because I tell people at a place like Stanford and Notre Dame, this is why they'll never win a national title at those places, is because when Nick Saban goes to admissions and has 20 guys, he gets 20 guys. When you go to admissions at Notre Dame and Stanford, you get 6 of those 20 guys.
Yeah.
And you have to build that up, and those guys become 3-4 year guys, and you have a great year. Those guys graduate, and you're back to the beginning again. That's why you have every other year and sometimes 2 years. But what Harbaugh did was he recruited and hit on a lot of those seven guys, and it became a chain effect. And that's why he was probably the best recruiter in Stanford football history.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, truly no question about it that he left an imprint. And he also, I give him credit, I never thought that tough guy football would work at Stanford. I always thought it was going to be the Walsh, John Ralston, let's play pretty football, right? Throw the ball. He played tough guy football there. It worked, and it worked great. And he established something that lasted for a number of years. Again, David Shaw continued that legacy on. And so, yes, I would hire Jim Harbaugh, knowing full by year 2 or 3, he's going to be grousing about his contract, which is what he was doing in San Francisco. He was grousing about his contract. He was expecting to get paid this. He was expecting to get paid that. He wanted this. He wanted that. He wanted more control. Like, he's always going to find a reason.
In after the bowl game that he had to have.
Well, it comes back to, I never really lived anywhere that long, and I'm just going to grate on people because I'm going to be.
Spurrier used to do that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's the nature of who people are. So I'd hire him, and again, you get back to the cheating thing. It's like this stuff happens in college football. It's stupid, and the fact that they allow it to happen, like that's what pisses me off about college football. Is like, they play this holier than thou card. It's like, no. You guys set up rules that essentially encouraged people to cheat, and like, now it's entrapment, basically. I mean, now they broke rules and it's bad and it's all those kinds of things, but just put in a radio system. What are you doing? Change your signals. What are you doing?
Jason, you take Michigan out of the Big Ten in Ohio State, your Conference USA, okay? Iowa, Indiana.
You might be the Big 12. You might be the Big 12.
The Big 12. Okay. You're not. Michigan gives you identity. They sell Harbaugh in the khakis. He's a draw. The reason why networks, why they're not going to go on and have any problems? Because the networks are going to step in like ESPN and Fox and go, hang on. You're telling me we're going to send, we're going to send Ohio State, who is okay, I guess so. Again, Michigan's more compelling and a higher rating. Television networks run this stuff, dude. You know this. They run it. We're not gonna. So the Big Ten championship game is going to be Iowa versus Ohio State. I'm not watching that.
No, look. It's much ado. In my view, it's much ado about nothing, other than it's an honor code violation and you deserve to pay some. But as I always come back to all this, fix the problem so that people can't do this. The NFL had this rule back in 2007. The Patriots broke the rule. What did they do? They put in a coach to quarterback radio system, put in a coach to the middle linebacker radio system. There's no more of this cheating. Just get rid of it. Be done with it.
Well, I know this, that Al Davis used to have, when they stayed at the hotels in Oakland, Al used to have like the maids go in on a Saturday and go in and look and see if any of the players at the rooms had any of like sketchy notes or anything in the trash buckets, or someone left a playbook behind. Then they would bring it over to Al. Told me this, and they would bring it over, or get this, say they were playing the Chargers with Wes Chandler and them guys. All of a sudden, they would turn the sprinklers on over at the Oakland Coliseum, and Wes Chandler goes, "I walk in there, it doesn't rain in California. How come the field is flooded?"
I got two stories about Al, real quick. The first one is, back in the 70s, Jim Mandich told me this one, that they were playing a game at Cal because the Coliseum was taken up because the A's were in the World Series, right? So they're playing at Cal, and Shula comes in at halftime, and he starts looking at the light fixture, And he goes, Al, I know you have this place bugged. I know it. I know it. And he's screaming at the light fixture, and manages going, what the hell is going on here? But and the best part is, like, Al's line afterwards was, it wasn't in the light fixture. That's number one. Oh, what now? I've all of a sudden forgotten what was. Oh, number two is Mike Ornstein told me this story. This is classic. That he used to have he would like make relationships with assistant coaches on other teams, and so he would go out on the field, and you would see inevitably that he would be back to back with the assistant coach from the other team, because he was always talking about, oh, I'm going to get you a job, I'm going to get you a job, I'm going to get you a job.
Morris Bradshaw was part of that,
right? And so they would talk to each other back to back and share secrets, and Al would, and then there's a great story about him with Lance Allworth. When Lance Allworth was playing for the Chargers, and he goes up to Lance Allworth pretending to be a reporter and said, hey, what's your favorite route? Finally, Gilman screams over there, goes, Al, get away from my player. Like that. Like, cheating happens. Like, this is just what these guys are about. There's too much on the line. So take away the opportunity. Expect them to live by some BS honor code. It's not gonna happen.
Hey, Jace, I'm gonna leave you with this one here. So okay. I had never played at the Horseshoe, so I go into the Horseshoe, and we're opposing team. I use the visiting lockers in there. I walk into the visiting lockers. This is before they retrofitted and fixed it up, the Horseshoe, Ohio State, where they played. I walk in there and I look and I go, the locker's pink, and there's only 20 lockers, and there's 60 of us, and there's one bar of soap, and the towels all have starch in them. And I'm going like this. What in the and the water's trickled down. Woody made sure that every single time, hey, your experience at the Horseshoe was, hey, you're taking a shower like this. There's no hot water. It's just a little water coming down.
You got like a cup. You got a cup. Yeah, you got a cup. You got a cup, and you're like trying to gather the water.
Like a bar of soap, Jason, that like 18 teams had used prior to that on the dish. And I'm sitting here looking at this, and it's like freezing cold, and there's 20 lockers and 65 of us, and I'm like, and the walls were pink. That was Woody, man. That's what he wanted, your experience. Jace, thank you so much, my friend.
All right, dude. I'll talk to you later.
You got it. That is our friend, Jason Cole, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. Please follow him on Twitter and follow his work. Hit the like button. Power Hour coming up. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect